Think and Grow Rich, Chapter 5, Imagination. Imagination, as Napoleon Hill describes it, is the workshop of the mind. And when he wrote this book, again, or when it was published back in 1937, he stated that we've discovered and harnessed more of nature's forces during the past 50 years than throughout past human history. And I'm sure anyone would agree, here in 2022, technology is moving at speeds that we've never seen before. So who knows how much of nature's forces we have harnessed since he wrote this book. But essentially he talks about how we've conquered the air with flight, and we've conquered the ether with instantaneous communication. And there he was talking about obviously the telephone, but that's hugely increased now with the invention of the internet, etc. But he says what's most important was discovering that the brain is not just a broadcasting, but a receiving station for the vibration of thought. And man's only limitation within reason lies in his development and use of his imagination. He talks about there are two types of imagination. There's what he calls synthetic, where we use old concepts and ideas and turn those into new combinations, but essentially it creates nothing new. And then he talks about the creative imagination as to how the finite mind of man communicates directly with infinite intelligence. And he says that all great leaders and all artists have developed this skill. And if you were to ask any of them, probably their greatest inventions, greatest music pieces, masterpieces came from, they probably can't tell you. It just happened to be there. And that's what Napoleon Hill is talking about. And it's also the way that thought vibrations pass between individuals. But it only functions when the conscious mind is vibrating at an exceedingly rapid rate, which means it needs emotional input. Then we've got the first quote, which I'm going to quote from here, which says, "The creative faculty becomes more alert, more receptive to vibrations from the sources mentioned in proportion to its development through use." Napoleon Hill says this statement is really, really significant and we should ponder over it before passing on. Then he gives another reminder to write down the plan that we discussed in chapter 1. And we've got a few more quotes here, which again are really, really important, so I am going to read them. Because he says this statement is of stupendous importance. This earth, every one of the billions of individual cells of your body, and every atom of matter began as an intangible form of energy. Desire is thought impulse. Thought impulses are forms of energy. The same stuff that nature used in creating this earth and every material form in the universe. And as far as science has been able to determine, the entire universe consists of but two elements, matter and energy. Then Napoleon Hill compares nature's conversion of a single cell into a human with a conversion of desire into its physical equivalent. Essentially, it's all been done before. He then goes on to say, don't become discouraged by what we've read so far. This might be the first time that you might be reading through this book, but as I've said previously, it's not about reading the book once. It's about reading the book over and over again. Because once you've read through the book once, you'll be a different person from the person who read the book the first time. And when you do that, he says, you won't want to stop. He then goes on to tell two stories. The first one is about a clerk who pays a doctor $500 for an old-fashioned kettle, a wooden paddle, and a small slip of paper on which was written a secret formula. Essentially, he purchased an idea. But what's really important is he added his own secret ingredient. And that secret ingredient was imagination. It's now grown to one of the biggest worldwide brands. You may, I'm sure, as I do, recognise the name Coca-Cola. He then tells the story how a clergyman manifested $1 million to found the Armour Institute of Technology. He'd spent many years toying with the idea of raising the money, but once he'd made a definite decision and a definite plan to get it within a week, he actually had it within 36 hours.